Hey there, LifePoint. My name is Ryan. I hope you're having an awesome holiday season, that you're getting a chance to spend time with your family, your friends, your loved ones. You might be wondering why we have a sink over here, and you're going to find out in just a bit. We have an awesome message coming from our lead pastor, Kyle, for our Volunteer Appreciation Sunday. Hey, if this is the first time that you're tuning into a message, first, welcome. And if you are a regular attender of our services, glad to have you back. So now I'm going to give the floor to Kyle, but feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy the message.
Who does the dishes at your house? I'm not trying to start a marital squabble. I know many of you are watching this from home, probably with your family. Don't elbow each other and say, hey, I did it last night. It's his turn. I come home from work late, she should do the dishes. My roommate never does the dishes. I'm not trying to create any sort of squabble. But doing the dishes is something that is an important, monotonous, but daily chore, hopefully daily, that almost everybody does. I do the dishes in my house. And I wanted to show you some pictures of some of the times that I have had to do the dishes. So here's the first one. You might notice there are actually poinsettias in my dish. Well, beside the dishes that are in the sink. And those are there because they were dying and we're trying to give them some water. And you can see on the left-hand side, there's some dishes that are clean that haven't gotten put away. And on the right-hand side are some dishes I've kind of ignored. Here's an over-the-top view of me when I usually am doing the dishes down when I promise I move the poinsettias before I do anything else. But interestingly enough, I'm usually the one who does the dishes in our house. It's kind of a joint thing that we do as a family. Like my son sometimes does them, my wife sometimes does them, but usually it's me. And usually what I do is I take my phone and I take my AirPods and I put them in and I listen to a book. In case you're looking for a good book, thank you so much, Mike, who put me onto the Stormlight archive. It is a wonderful book. I am on book 3, but that has nothing to do with today's message. But if you're a fantasy lover in terms of books, that might be something you check out. So I put in my AirPods, I take my phone, I push play, and I sit at the sink and I just kind of do the dishes one at a time. You know, I'll pick up my plates or my cups and I'll just kind of go through it. But there are times when I don't have my AirPods. There are times when something else is going on in my life. And I have enough time to sit down there and think, what is going on? What didn't I do that day? Maybe Rachel and I had a fight. Maybe it wasn't a good parent that day. Maybe something else happened. And it's a way for me to just sit and think and do the dishes. But interestingly, doing the dishes is kind of like a microcosm of our life. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can't go to sleep until the dishes are done. I've done it before, but it's really hard to go on with my day when the dishes are done. And one of the points I think I'm trying to make here is that the mess you see is rarely the real problem. The mess you see is rarely the real problem. So sometimes dishes are peaceful, at least to me. Is that I come home, everything is great, the family's great, Rachel's helping the kids get to bed, and maybe I'm just sitting there going, this is my peaceful time. But there are other times, and you know what these are like, that I am exhausted, that I'm frustrated, that the dishes is like a way of symbolizing like everything is not okay. Now, we're post-Christmas now, and I hope you and your family had a great Christmas Eve. We're heading into the new year. And this is what I call the stretch that we call the January grind. And this probably looks like this for most of us, is that we set new goals, we start new habits, maybe we want to have a new discipline, we want to lose weight, we want to read more, we want to spend more time with the kids, we want to pick up a hobby, we want to do more, be better, minimize, maximize. Essentially, we want to change. But the challenge is sometimes is that maybe we're not doing enough, maybe we're doing too much and we want to put something down. And the idea is that we're not doing enough, so we want to add to our life. We want to change something in our life, or we want to minimize something in our life. And I think these things are great. I do these almost every year. I create goals for myself. Some are doing goals. I want to accomplish these things. Some are being goals. I want to become this person. But what I want to suggest is that this year, maybe we should take a different approach. Maybe, what if some of the biggest impact that we could make in our lives this year isn't by adding something, but by dealing with something old. Not by adding something, but by dealing with something old. And kind of the dish and the sinks here are kind of like a representation of that. Have you ever tried to cook or have people over or go to bed or just hang out at the countertop and you have dishes in the background that are just not dealt with? I don't know about you, but it drives me nuts. It drives my wife nuts. We see it as something unresolved in the background. You know, I'm trying to cook, and if I need to rinse some pasta, or maybe I just need to pour cold water over something, and there is a sink full of dishes, there is no way I'm doing that. I get frustrated so quickly. So they have to be done. Or maybe we have people over, and we've just kind of finished eating, and we piled our plates, and they're not neat, and you're just looking at it in the background, you're just like, this is just a distraction to me. I don't know if you can resonate with that, but it's for sure that way with me. So the way we could say about it is this: if you don't deal with what's already piled up, everything you add just gets mixed into the mess. It just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. And soon, at the end of the night, even though you're trying to go about your day, you're trying to go about your hanging out with people, you're trying to get the kids to bed, there's this gnawing thing in the background. As you walk by the kitchen, you go, who's going to do the dishes? When are those going to get done? When am I going to have the time to get done? I've got all these other things to do, but those dishes back there are nagging me. Now, interestingly enough, and you probably know this, everyone deals with this in a different way. Everyone deals with the sink full of dishes a different way. Some people, they just keep adding, right? They've eaten, they've put their dinner dishes in there, then they have their dessert dishes, then they put those in there, then they have their snack dishes, then they put those in there, then they have the midnight snack dishes, then they put those in there, and they just keep adding and adding and adding. You know, and some people look at the pile and they just go, you know, if I just arrange some of these and I just stack them, it'll make it look a little bit better. And then some people, they look at the dishes and they look at the sink and they just pass and they go, I can't even get to that. I can't even look at that. And they just kind of like this. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist. Some people, and sometimes this is me, some people will do the dishes out of guilt. They'll go, you know what, no one's got to do this. Fine. They roll up their sleeves. They begrudgingly grab their towel and they start scrubbing in there because no one's going to do it. And they do it begrudgingly and they have a bad attitude. Some people are like, you know what, I've had enough. We're switching to paper plates. No more dishes for anybody. That's all we have. Everyone deals with the dishes in a different way. And if you haven't caught on yet, and you're smart, I'm sure you have, you know these dishes, they are metaphors and they are microcosms for how we deal with life. The dishes are a metaphor for everything that you and I deal with in life. There's a phrase that goes like this: how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think there is some truth in that. If you're an avoider of the dishes, which is one of the easiest things to do, you're going to be an avoider of people. If you do the dishes begrudgingly because no one else will do them and you become bitter about that, that is probably how you address life. If you're a person who just kind of makes it look nicer and ignores the pile and the reality that a sink full of dishes is not going to get done, you probably will do that in life. So this mess is a microcosm and a metaphor for how you and I often live life, because how we handle this, we take into everything else. How we handle stress, how we handle the expectations, the effort that we put into our jobs. We take that into our parenting, we take that into our marriage, we take that with us to work, we take that to our roommates, we take that into our dating life, we take that into our single life. How you deal with this is like a metaphor for how you deal with everything else in your life. Now you've probably heard something like this, and usually when we get to the new year, we really just want to change. We look towards the new year and we say, maybe last year was great. Can it be better? Or maybe last year was really terrible. And you're like, I would just like next year to be better. And you've probably seen a version of this sentence. I believe most of this sentence is true, but there's a problem with it. So it goes like this: how you think influences your thoughts, or how you think influences your thoughts. And your thoughts influence your behavior. And your behavior influences your habits, and your habits influence your character. And your character is more important than above all else. And I think this sentence as it is probably true. The way you perceive the dishes, or the mess, or a conflict, or something in your life, the way you think about that, it will affect how you behave. And that behavior will affect how you deal with it repeatedly, your habits, whether you're an avoider, whether you engage with it, or whether you just set it aside and ignore it. And that probably will influence your character. If you constantly avoid things, you become a person who is known as an avoider, not just someone who avoided one thing. And then you take that with you everywhere that you go. I don't know if you know this, which you probably do. You take yourself with you everywhere you go. Wherever your character is, there you are. And wherever you are, you take your character with you. That's into your marriages, into your parenting life, into your work, walking down the street, into every relationship you'll ever have. Whoever you are, you take yourself with you. So you would think that the easiest way, and what most people would say, is that if you change how you think, that will change everything else down the line. Now, this is true, but it's missing something, because most of us don't address thinking first. We address behavior, but behavior is downstream from something deeper. It's downstream from something deeper. And what I mean is not just thinking, because thinking impacts your behavior. Most of us react to behavior, our own behavior, our behaviors of others. I don't know if you've ever been at the dinner table and you ask someone to pass the ketchup and you get into an argument. It's not about the ketchup, right? I don't know if you've ever parented and you think everything's going right, and then all of a sudden your daughter just explodes because something happened at school. You're addressing the behavior that they have given you. Or maybe your dating life isn't really going well, and the person across from you at dinner is just the silent treatment, and you know something is wrong, and instead of wondering why that is, you just address and respond to the behavior. And so most people think if you just address how you think about that, then it'll address the behavior. And that sentence, I think, is true. The problem is it's incomplete. There's something that comes before your thinking. There's something that becomes after your character. And we want to make sure to address that. There's an ancient wisdom to kind of tease out what this means that says this: above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Above all else, guard your heart, from everything that you do flows from it. And that impacts your heart, that impacts your mind, that impacts your behavior. But it's even more so before this. So, if you haven't gotten this part yet, I want to be as clear as possible. It is not about the dishes. It's not. We've said this is just a metaphor. This is just a microcosm. It's not about the dishes. They're always going to pile up. Unless you have switched to paper plates and you're one of those people, even then you still got to put them in the trash, you still got to take those out. So the dishes are going to pile up. You're going to have to address them. It's not about the dishes, because you're going to have to do that every time. Two things that I think are really helpful in understanding why it's not about the dishes. The first one is this: the problem you feel. The problem you feel. Most of us, when we feel an issue, especially for men, we think, how do I fix this? We go right into fixing mode. Someone's mad at me. I want to make sure to make them happy. They're happy. I want to make sure to continue that. And most of us think that this is the real issue. And, Rachel and I, a long time ago, we came up with the definition of emotions. That emotions are God's way of responding to the truth in a meaningful way. That's why we have emotions. That's what I believe God gave us emotions. When someone you know and love is in the hospital and they're hurting, you feel sad because the reality is they're hurting. Or when you have just held someone's hand for the first time, someone you look at dating, or someone you have had a crush on, and you feel that euphoric butterflies in your stomach. The truth of the matter is you're excited about the possibility of being with that person. Or maybe you are holding hands with the person you've been with for decades, and you feel a peace and a warmth and a desire to continue to spend time with them. The truth of the matter is that you've been with them and you feel peace, and that reinforces your emotion. The problem with most of us is we do the opposite, is that we have something that makes us feel a certain way, and then we draw a truth from that emotion, and then we live based on how that makes us feel, and we say, this must be true because this is how I feel. So what happens? It never addresses the real issue. It's like coming back and forth and continuing to try to address these dishes. Part of the issue isn't the dishes, it's how did they get there? Who put them there? Why did they keep piling up, right? So number one is, it's the problem that you feel. And how do I fix this? It's a great question, but it's not the best one, which leads us to number 2, and it's this: the problem that's real. How did I get here again? How did I end up here again? So if you were to use the dish analogy again, maybe the issue isn't that you have to do dishes. Maybe the issue is how they got there, how they're piled up, why there are so many, why every time you come to the sink you feel the same way about doing them. In order to fix what's real, you have to move past the problem that you feel. These two are not the same things. And maybe going into this year, the best thing we could do, instead of adding on a new goal, adding on a new change, adding on something new, is that we try to fix something that's old, that we deal with long-held issues. To put it frankly, if you lost weight, that's not going to necessarily fix your marriage. They may be like super glad I'm more attracted to you, but it's not going to fix the underlying issue. If you have some really good times with your kids, but you never address the real issue, it puts it off for a time. Like, you have to deal with the real issues. So that's why we hope you'll come to this series, because we want to deal with all sorts of things. And so I want to give you a bunch of things that we're going to deal with in this series. First one would be uncertainty. Maybe you're a person who doesn't have a lot of confidence. Maybe you just don't know what's going to happen next. Loneliness is an epidemic in our country. Despite the amount of people that are around us, many people describe themselves as lonely. In fact, in my profession, especially for lead pastors, most of us would describe ourselves as lonely, even though we have support, great staff, and people who know and love us. Why is that? And then there's guilt and shame. Many of us have done things, and we have said, man, I'm so ashamed of what I've done, but I'm even more ashamed because I believe I am that type of person. Division and hostility, we've experienced that from everything from politics to our churches to religion to people coming from different religions to our household. It seems like most of us are high-strung because there's so much division and hostility in our own homes, in our societies, in our workplaces. Spiritual weakness, many people think I can never have a relationship with God. He'll never accept me. Or I have a current one and I'm stuck. I can't go any further. I don't know how to get there. And when something comes along, I'm just weak. I go back to the same sin. I go back to something that turns me into a person I don't want to be. How do I deal with it? And then your purpose. Some people are like, why am I on this earth? I want to do something of value. I want my life to be valuable. And then we have some other ones. Your past. Many of us would love to go back to our past and change things, and you can't. You can't get into time machine and change. How do you go forward from your past? Temptation. Many of us are tempted in lots of ways. It may be with pornography or gambling or looking at things we shouldn't have to, or just the temptation to buy or to shop or to avoid certain things. How do you get over temptation? Your marriage. Most marriages in the United States end in divorce. In fact, in the church, it's higher than 50%. The odds are against every marriage. What about your parenting? Most people I know that come to our church, their either kids are doing great, or they say some version of, my kids are not walking with God, or they dislike me, they don't want to hang out with me, they just don't want to spend time with me. Or maybe it's just anything at all. You'd love to deal with anything, which is how we're going to end this series. Now, if you've looked at this list, my guess is you could pick something on this list, and you could say, if we could just fix the problem, which would just be the one we feel, but if we could figure out how did we end up here again, and figure out how not to end up in that place in your marriage and your parenting and temptation or to deal with your past, my guess is if you could actually deal with that problem and never come back to it, or at least so rare that it makes a huge difference, you would address it and your life would be better. It's not an addition of a new goal or something new and shiny. If you just dealt with something that has been festering and old, that has been stacking up for a long time, my guess is your life would be better. And so we really want you to come to this series because all throughout it, we're going to give you practical tools to deal with old, nagging, stacked up, dirty dishes. We'd love for you to do that. But remember this phrase that we started out with. It's not about the dishes. At the end, there's something called an ellipsis. It's these dots at the end, which means it's the first part of a phrase. If it's not about the dishes, then what is it about? Today, I just wanted to introduce you to this idea that we're going to help you understand how to deal with anything. And we believe there is ancient wisdom that will help you in marriage and parenting and temptation, and it's all in one source. You can get it, and it'll be easy for you to understand and easy for you to read. This series will be an easy invite for you, for people who don't come to church, for people who've never heard the name of God, or someone who's just looking for help in any of these areas. I highly recommend. It's going to be super practical, and you are really going to enjoy this series. So, we're not going to tell you the other part of that sentence. You're going to have to come back next week because we're going to ask this question: what are we really dealing with? Because remember, it is not about the dishes. I hope you'll join us next week as we tackle this question. We're praying for you. We'd love to meet you, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that message as much as I did. It was such a blast. I not only learned about dishes, but I also learned how to deal with everything. And I can't wait for this upcoming series. We are kicking back off on Sunday, January 4th, for our 9 a.m. service and 10:30 a.m. service. So feel free to come out to one of those. We are definitely saving you a seat, and we'll see you in the new year.